While Don Jr. was in New York preparing to testify in court, his fiancée, Kimberly, was at the party dressed up as Trump's constituents, Snow White. Don Jr. was not at Daddy Donald's last night. The prodigal son was being grilled as part of the $250 million case against their business. But I did get some exciting news this weekend. According to a new poll from YouGov, which is a serious polling site, or they were before this, I am more popular than the President of the United States.
It began with a moment no one saw coming. Jimmy Kimmel crossed a line few ever dared. In one of the most chaotic and biting roast sessions ever captured on camera, he went straight after Don Jr. and his father. It felt less like a comedy skit and more like a family barbecue gone completely off the rails. The grill exploding, ketchup flying, and everyone wondering who even invited Jimmy in the first place. What started as harmless, late-night humor quickly spiraled into a full-blown comedic takedown. And one thing's for sure, the Trumps won't be laughing when this one's over.
This month, we'll have International Asexuality Day. I mean, because that's a big one. Don't forget that one, folks. That's basically like Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving, all wrapped up into one special, radical, insane Democrat holiday.
No, that's right, folks. And if anyone knows special, it's me, DJ TJ. You remember the guy who keeps saying I have no ratings? Well, that makes two of us. They polled more than 1,000 people, and I lead Trump by 16 points. I'm at +3, he's at -13. It's nice, but it feels like, considering the fact that I'm not a convicted felon friend of Jeffrey Epstein, and I've never paid off a porn star or sent a team of masked goons into a park to pull an old lady away from her grandchildren, I feel like my rating should be higher, maybe, than...
If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tap the bell icon for more. What happened next was something no one expected. Jimmy Kimmel just unleashed a moment so outrageous it sent shockwaves across the internet. Imagine this, a late-night comedian suddenly transforming into a one-man political wrecking crew. His targets? Don Jr. and his father, the sitting president of the United States. What began as an ordinary night of humor quickly escalated into a full-blown comedic airstrike. Every punchline landing with the precision and impact of a leaked classified document.
There he is, tiny soprano. I wonder what's going through his head right now.
I should have worn makeup.
Oh, yeah, good one. Here's the thing about Don Jr. What he lacks in intelligence, he also lacks in charisma. So, and as with all cases involving the family Trump, DJ TJ was sworn in on an upside-down Bible. He will finish his testimony tomorrow, and then Eric will testify, and then Trump will claim he's never met either one of them. But it's getting serious.
The moment didn't just turn into a roast. It became a full-blown spectacle. Jimmy Kimmel practically built a bonfire, tossed in a few viral tweets, and lit the match with sharp, effortless sarcasm. It all started with Don Jr., who's often compared to a Wi-Fi signal that cuts out just when you need it most. He decided once again to step back into the spotlight, believing he could handle the heat, but Jimmy had very different plans this time.
At this point, finding a toenail in your salad has a 7-point lead over Donald Trump. And I hope he doesn't see this. I hate to, I don't like to upset him, but I think he might be upset because the White House put out a statement this afternoon. This is a real statement. Over 77 million Americans showed up on Election Day to cast their ballots for President Donald J. Trump, who is delivering on his overwhelming mandate to put America first. Jimmy Kimmel prays every night to garner a fraction of that support to keep his show on air after ratings dropped 64% last week. Sad. I like sad with an exclamation point. It would make a nice t-shirt with Trump's face on it, wouldn't it?
You could practically feel the tension ripple through the political PR war room as Kimmel unleashed his monologue, cutting through the Trump family's antics like a buzzsaw through soft wood. He opened with Don Jr.'s newest attempt to stay in the spotlight, which, as always, carried far more energy than reasoning. Let's just say, if charisma were currency, Don Jr. would still be working off a debt that started back in 2016.
I'm just proud of the toughest person I've ever met in my entire life for having the backbone and fortitude to go through this whole mess, as uncomfortable as it's been. And I'm proud to have stood there every single second by his side in that freezing cold courtroom. He's an inspiration to me every single day. and he'll be vindicated.
In other words, Daddy, I was there, Don Jr. wasn't. He just showed up today.
And then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. Jimmy shifted his focus to the president himself. You know it's getting real when Kimmel, a man who once broke down over a healthcare bill, suddenly transforms into a verbal marksman, taking aim at the commander-in-chief's entire persona. He didn't just ridicule him. He dissected him with the precision of someone who'd been taking notes since that very first fake news press conference. Each line dripped with irony, coated in political glitter, and launched straight toward Trump Tower. The irony? Trump probably relished every second of it. This is a man who thrives on criticism like caffeine. He simply can't operate without it. Every joke becomes his next tweet, every jab turns into a rallying cry. Kimmel even highlighted how Don Jr. constantly seeks his father's approval, despite the man's emotional range resembling a brick wall wrapped in a red tie. It's like watching a grown man audition for validation from someone far too preoccupied with tweeting about golf scores.
You know, sometimes we get so fixated on Trump, we forget there are other disgusting creatures hell-bent on bringing about the end of the world out there. But our president, Metamucil World Peace, is having a pretty good week, or he was anyway. Yesterday, Trump had what was easily the most presidential day of his life. He was front and center on the world stage, signing a ceasefire in the Middle East, and then he got home, he started going through the internet, and he just couldn't help himself. Trump made the cover of Time magazine, which he usually loves. You know, before he was president,
There's something almost masterful about Kimmel's roast. He didn't need to shout or rely on flashy gimmicks. Instead, he delivered cold, perfectly timed humor that landed like a slap you never saw coming. His style carried that familiar late-night composure, calm, smooth, and deliberate. Every jab was hidden behind a smile, every punchline crafted with surgical precision. He portrayed Don Jr. as a tragic figure, trapped in the long political shadow of his father, endlessly trying to prove he's more than just Trump Jr., yet somehow always reinforcing the opposite. Then came the metaphors. Kimmel compared the Trump family brand to an overextended reality show. It's still running, but everyone seems exhausted, and the plot stopped making sense 3 seasons ago. He didn't even have to exaggerate. The humor wrote itself. By this point, the internet was in flames. Trump supporters called Kimmel unhinged. Liberals hailed him as a comedic messiah, and everyone else, they just came for the memes. The remarkable part, Kimmel never appeared angry. He looked almost entertained, as if he had finally realized that the nation's political turmoil had become the most captivating show on television, and he held a front row seat.
They're eating their cats, they're eating the dogs. Welcome back to the program.
Charlie, I thought this was a conspiracy theory, and like all conspiracy theories, it turns out to be true.
what is going on with that lisp? A conspiracy theory, you say? Who is conspiring? Immigrants from Port-au-Prince? I mean, I read that they're roasting Irish feathers.
It's disgusting, and it should not be happening in America. It shouldn't be happening anywhere else in the civilized world, but that's the reality. Okay, you look at Haiti, you look at the demographic makeup, you look at the average IQ. If you import the third world into your country, you are going to become the third world. That's just basic. Like, it's not racist, it's just fact.
I don't know, sounds pretty racist to me.
Then came the wider lens, because Kimmel isn't just about roasting individuals. He understands how to frame the entire picture. He transformed the Trump phenomenon into a living punchline, comparing it to a company that keeps announcing major victories while quietly losing all its customers. It was that rare kind of satire that sits perfectly between hilarious and unsettling. The kind that makes you laugh first, then stop and think because it feels uncomfortably true. At one point, Kimmel joked that Don Jr. defends his father like a man hypnotized by motivational posters. He's always preaching about strength and success, yet conveniently skips over the parts where the economy's burning, half the cabinet is quitting, and the family empire is facing investigation. And just like that, the internet had a new fixation. Don Jr.'s attempts to fire back only made things worse, each response proving Kimmel's point in real time. Every comeback felt like a deleted scene from a poorly scripted reality show. It's an endless loop. The more serious Don Jr. tries to appear, the more unintentionally comical he becomes. Almost poetic in its irony.
He had fake Time magazine covers hanging on the walls of his golf club. For real, But this one, I guess, conjured up some mixed feelings because of the photo being used. It's upset him so much that at 1:36 a.m. he posted, Time magazine wrote a relatively good story about me, but the picture may be the worst of all time. They disappeared my hair and then had something floating on top of my head that looked like a floating crown, but an extremely small one, really weird. Now, I want to go back to that cover and show you this crown. Okay, that's not a crown, that's the letter M. Only he would see an M on his head and assume it's a crown. If that's not an M, you're on the cover of Time magazine, okay?
And there he was, Jimmy Kimmel, standing on stage with that knowing smirk, like the world's most patient teacher watching a student stumble over the same line again and again. But what truly made this roast cut deeper was the political landscape behind it. Trump's presidency, already famous for its daily twists and turns, became the perfect backdrop for Kimmel's comedic precision. Inflation? He turned it into a punchline. The border? He framed it like a chaotic family road trip gone wrong. Global diplomacy? He compared it to a toddler trying to manage a lemonade stand. Every major crisis became comedy gold, not because the issues were funny, but because the reactions surrounding them were. There's a strange comfort in watching a comedian deconstruct political absurdity with humor sharper than most journalistic analysis. Naturally, Trump loyalists rushed to defend the family, calling Kimmel biased, bitter, or jealous, ironically proving his point. A few jokes in, and half the internet seemed ready to open an official investigation. Kimmel probably went home, poured himself a quiet drink, and thought, mission accomplished. Because in the end, there's nothing more gratifying for a comedian than watching a single punchline ripple across the world for days to come.
The other sniveling MAGA turd who has a weird twist on our president's name is Don Jr.
Check this out. Joe Biden. 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 Joe Biden has dementia.
That's right. He's the one with the dementia. That's right. It's like he got bitten by a radioactive morning zoo or something. Joe Biden. Joe Biden. Joe Biden. Here in LA, school is out for the summer, but...
At the same moment, Don Jr. turned to social media to set the record straight. A move that, historically, never ends well. His posts felt like the digital equivalent of someone being roasted at a dinner table and then emailing the waiter to complain about it. He tried to spin it as a victory, but by then, the memes had already taken over, and somewhere in the middle of that chaos, Trump himself stepped in because, of course, he did. Reports say the president didn't appreciate Kimmel's tone, which is ironic coming from a man whose own tone has sparked more international incidents than any comedian could ever dream of. Still, even his outrage felt routine. Another dramatic statement, another wave of headlines, another round of fake news complaints. At this point, it's less a presidency and more of a long-running performance art piece that refuses to end. The most revealing part, though, is how it exposed the fragile ego ecosystem surrounding the Trump dynasty. Don Jr.'s desperate attempt to mirror his father is like watching someone perform karaoke to a song no one ever liked to begin with. Every time he tries to sound powerful, he ends up sounding like he's giving a TED Talk on being misunderstood.
Being honored for wearing that tie down to your knees. Every morning is a game of who am I mad at today? Is it the Cracker Barrel logo? Is it windmills? Is it Bad Bunny? Is it the Nobel Prize? Or is it the turkey vagina slapping around over my chin? I'm not sure we're even allowed to show his neck on TV. Wouldn't it be funny if the FCC fined us for showing his neck on TV? Trump went on, I never like taking pictures from underneath angles, but this is a super bad picture and deserves to be called out. What are they doing and why? It's like he's a TikTok influencer yelling at her boyfriend for not knowing her angles.
It began as late-night laughter, but quickly became something far more revealing. Kimmel's jokes only highlighted that tragic irony. The more they fought for dominance, the more cartoonish they appeared. By the end of the week, everyone was talking about it, not because it was scandalous, but because it was absurdly entertaining. Kimmel didn't dismantle them with anger, he did it with perspective. He revealed how power, when fueled by vanity and ego, eventually turns itself into comedy. Don Jr.'s relentless search for validation, Trump's obsession with control, both collapsing under the weight of their own performance. And through it all, Kimmel kept smiling, like a man who knows he's stumbled upon the world's most dependable source of material. There's something enduring in that. In a world flooded with political noise, humor remains the last honest voice standing. And Jimmy Kimmel somehow has perfected that rare balance, laughing at the chaos while quietly reminding us that it is chaos.
Is being held responsible for making safety last, but fortunately for him, he's got an ardent defender in one Donald J. Jr.
Pete Buttigieg, you saw in the clip earlier, he's taking some personal time because, 19 days isn't enough time, plus the time he spent chest feeding while we were in the midst of a supply chain crisis and 350 million Americans were depending on him to do his damn job. But there is no accountability. There's not even the expectation of these guys doing their jobs.
And what is your job exactly? I mean, seriously, besides yelling at your laptop, what is it that you do for a living? What do you write on your tax return, son? Donald Trump Jr. is the only guy in America who claims himself as a dependent.
It wasn't just late-night humor, it was a moment of reflection. When people say Jimmy Kimmel destroyed Don Jr. and Trump, it's not really about humiliation, it's about exposure. He held up a mirror, and what stared back was a blend of comedy, confusion, and ego. The roast wasn't only funny, it was revealing. Because at its core, Kimmel didn't simply attack their politics, he went after their personas, the brand, the myth, the endless performance of power that collapses the instant someone dares to laugh at it. And that's what makes it so compelling. This wasn't just another celebrity feud, it was a cultural snapshot, a reminder that comedy can cut deeper than outrage ever could. Kimmel didn't tear them down with insults. He did it with irony, truth, and flawless timing. The internet, of course, will soon move on to the next scandal. But this one lingers because when you think about it, Kimmel barely had to lift a finger. The material practically wrote itself. The Trump family continues to operate like a never-ending reality show that forgot it was supposed to end after season 1. Every episode feels the same. Don Jr. trying to sound profound, Trump declaring everything to be the best ever, and someone somewhere in the background still trying to make sense of the plot.
Meanwhile, the president has been doing his part to bring the two sides together by calling one of the sides the party of hate, evil, and Satan. Hate, evil, and Satan. And that's why they call him the peace president. Teddy Roosevelt had a press conference / pity party today. He bitched and moaned and patted himself on the back so many times he almost dislocated his shoulder. He played all the hits. He bragged about winning the elections in Georgia in 2016 and 2024. He again claimed the election was stolen from him in Georgia in 2020. The blaming and the bragging, he cannot stop.
It began with a simple twist. Kimmel stepping in and turning the subtitles into jokes, and that's exactly what made it brilliant. He didn't exaggerate the chaos, he simply exposed it. Watching Don Jr. defend his father's every move was like watching someone defend a volcano for erupting. It's just passionate, he insists, as the lava burns down half the country. Kimmel recognized that disconnect, that gap between image and absurdity, and built his entire roast around it. Even seasoned political commentators couldn't help but laugh because Kimmel managed to voice what most people were too polite to admit. The president's composure, the family's theatrics, the fragile pride, it was all laid bare, one punchline at a time. So when people say Jimmy Kimmel destroyed Don Jr. and Trump, it isn't about rage or hostility, it's about clarity. And maybe that's the lesson buried beneath the laughter. Power might shield you politically, but never comedically, because the moment you start taking yourself too seriously, someone like Jimmy Kimmel will be there. With a knowing smirk, a sharp punchline, and the perfect reminder that truth sometimes is the funniest thing of all. Of